Hey, all, this is it, or some semblance of it being it. Stormgate has a release date. Kinda. Let's talk about it. So, a blog post went live about 15 minutes ago. It actually leaked online a little bit earlier on accident. Apparently, they had issues with the publishing tools, so I had the chance to read it even before it went live. Some small things changed. I think mainly just adding some pictures. But we have a release date now. Stormgate comes out of early access on August 5th, 2025, which, if you're watching this on release, is about 2 weeks from now. So, yeah. They put a whole blog post about it. We're going to talk about it. But again, the big thing, early access ends. Everyone gets the email saying the game we've been following leaves early access in 2 weeks. So this is it. This is Frost Giants' big shot to see if they can go and recover all of the momentum that they lost with their early access launch just about a year ago. In fact, it is almost exactly a year. It was July 31st when the game entered the preferential early access period last year. It was 2 weeks later when it went to early access to everyone. Before then, you had to have either kickstarted or bought the Founders Pack or something. But right, just about almost exactly a year to the day when we entered early access. And last year, they were, in fairness, they were talking about year zero. This is the end of year zero. So let's go into what they have to say. So we shared our long-term vision for Stormgate at the inception of our company. We have 4 pillars, have always been campaign, co-op, competitive, and custom games. And those features remain integral to our plans. They go on to give some introspective about the progress. And again, it does seem clear, and I was saying this when they announced that, okay, 0.6 is when EA was going to leave, that this was very clearly we have to do something. And they actually do touch on this in the FAQ a little bit later. We have to do something. We can't just sit here and not have any players and not be making any money for too much longer. But this is not the game that we properly want to give. Like, this is not fully complete. So a couple weeks ago when they said, or maybe it was last week, and they said, hey, 0.6 leaving early access, it's not going to be 1.0, was an allusion to that fact that we're going to have our campaign, the 12 missions of the campaign, plus 2 like extra follow-on missions that they talk about it, still not quite clear what that is going to mean. But the fully enclosed mission or campaign 1 story of 12 missions is good enough for release. And 1v1 is good enough for release. So we're going to drop that. Everything else is going to be in a testing section. But this is good enough for our leaving early access with at least some functionality. We've been carefully listening and reading to feedback from our passionate community. Players have told us that calling our early access 0.6 may have been well meant. Again, saying this is not where we want to be. This is where we are right now. This is what we have to do, but this is not where we want to be, is what they were saying. But it didn't properly convey Stormgate's foundational content is complete and ready for others to enjoy. Even calling it foundational content, I get where they're coming from. They're saying a 1v1 in campaign, everything is built off that. 3v3 is built off campaign, 1v1 assets. Co-op built off 1v1 campaign assets. Right? You add something into 1v1, you add it into campaign, it can be used by the other faction, by the other things. Is not necessarily true. Taking 3v3 co-op and putting it into campaign to 1v1. So that's where they're going from with that. But they have 4 pillars, 4 foundational pillars. 1v1 and campaign are only 2 of them. So even calling them foundational, I think is I understand where they're coming from. Maybe a little bit confusing. That said, it was confusing, and we respect that feedback, so we're making some clarifications here. Stormgate Campaign 1, Ashes of Earth, is the official launch out of early access. It will include the complete Ashes of Earth campaign in a robust 1v1 mode, as well as access to the Terrain Editor Alpha and co-op modes that are still in active development based on community feedback. Now, a couple things about this. The fact that Terrain Editor is going to be available for everyone is massive. It is a really big deal because right now, anyone who has access to the editor, and you had to get whitelisted for it, if there is a map that you want to play, you just got to get someone who has the map on their machine. They host it up. You join the game, you have the game. So while it's not going to be the arcade system that StarCraft 2 had, which back in the day, this was before my time, but like almost killed the custom mapping scene a little bit. But back in the day, you do have this arcade system. Not going to have that. Not going to have anything quite so where you're able to go and like host all these custom maps and you just can find what you want when you want to play it. But it will mean that it's possible for someone to go play Run for Your Life. I go play it. I can now host it for my friends, right? It's a significant step in the right direction, even if it's not quite as regimented as otherwise it would be nice to have. And I'm really hoping they get the names fixed for 0.6. I think that actually should be a reasonably high priority. The other question that I have is what the state of co-op is, because co-op has been frozen for the last 2 patches or so. Yeah, it's 2 patches, 0.4, 0.5. It's been frozen. It's been slowly breaking as things, underlying stuff gets changed. Half the time the top bar doesn't work, which is not really a good state. Ideally, when they froze it, they said it's going to keep working as it was, but we're going to relaunch it at some point, and that's just not where it is right now. So I'm hoping with how they're talking about this and not specifying that it's frozen means that we should get some co-op updates in 0.6, fixing at least the bugs, because they're saying it's now an active development based on community feedback, which implies that we're going to get updates. And so that's how I read into that. I don't know. I haven't asked for comment from Frostshine on this, but that's what I read into that. Our goal with this fact is to answer questions we're seeing from our community, particularly around what the update means for the game's status, scope, and features. So here's a closer look at what we can expect. First one, when does it launch? August 5th, 2 weeks from today, if you're watching this when the video goes live, which I think is a lot sooner than a lot of people expected. And it's also, it's the start of Q3, realistically. Q3, I guess, is maybe halfway through. Q3 ends September 30th. So they're going to have 2 months. They're going to be pretty much, they're going to be a third of the way through the third quarter of 2025. In fact, realistically, based on the patch cadence, we should get the 0.7, no longer numbered, but 0.7 in right towards the end of Q3. And that is likely the Team Mayhem update, so that should be fun. What's going on with the patch numbers? What are you calling your launch release? We're going to drop the numbered system and instead stick with our release code names inspired by RTS units, which we still use internally. We think they're fun, and we want to continue sharing these with our community. Some are obscure, and we enjoy the community discussions they spark. This is this, and there's one other fact they make a little bit later that it really just feels like a stellarant for the Flames of Frost Giant is not being totally forthright with us. They're like, we were mad at, they were like, oh, we didn't like that they didn't call it 1.0, so we're just going to remove the numbers, which the sentiment is, Frost Giant, what is happening here? You're calling it a release, but it doesn't have all the features. What is happening? Right? That's the sentiment, not, oh, well, I'm confused. It's 0.6, not 1.0. That is a symptom of the actual confusion, and that is, how are you presenting what's happening here? Are you presenting the full four pillars that aren't in yet, or are you presenting a little bit of it? And clearly there's something happening behind the scenes. That's the confusion. And saying, well, it's going to be our Krogoth release or our Chronosphere release doesn't really. It just kind of gives more obfuscation. So you can't criticize them for calling it 0.6 on the EA launch. But it still doesn't solve the root of the problem here, right? That's not what's happening. Now, hopefully this is good. Hopefully they get more viewers and we're getting more players and people buy the game and they can continue to do what they want to do. But this is like taping someone's mouth shut because they're coughing. So great, they're not coughing anymore. But the problem is still there. They're still sick. I don't know. This approach will allow us to recognize each release for what it is, not an incremental addition to a progress bar with an arbitrary 1.0 at the end, but a meaningful addition to what has come before with new features, modes, content improvements for players to enjoy. Yeah, Frost Giant, that doesn't ring true. I'm sorry. I've probably been one of the bigger, if not the biggest proponents of Stormgate. I've been doing all this stuff, but I've been doing these dev interviews. I truly believe in this product they're working on. But that is marketing speak. I'm sorry. 1.0 is a very clear 4 pillars release, right? That is what you have a campaign, you have a fleshed out co-op, you have your team mode, you have 1v1, you have terrain editor. Done. Not early alpha that people are access to, which again, I talked to James Ferris last week. The terrain editor for where it is awesome, but that is no. I'm sorry. That is, you guys got to do better. That is no. Each release will steadily move us towards our vision for Stormgate as a frequently updated and supported RTS that, with your help, will grow and evolve for years to come. Yes, it's a live service game. But you've set this expectation for the last couple of years about what the 4 pillars are and what you're looking for and what a finished game, and by finished, I mean feature complete, moving on to the future, adding more campaigns, maybe tweaking units, doing all these things. Obviously, it's a live service. Things will be changed, added, removed. But that is blaming people for your... No, I'm sorry. That's not. This is marketing speak. This is attempting to deflect what you see coming, but this is not good enough. We believe this approach is better fit for live development. Stormgate is tremendously ambitious in scope. It is 100%. They decided, and this vision is what a next generation, or this is what a next big RTS needs. But Stormgate is tremendously ambitious in scope, with many features to flesh out and improve, even after our foundational modes are ready for launch. Again, this is not what you said. Foundational modes were 1v1, yes. Campaign, yes. Co-op, 3v3, terrain editor. Maybe 3v3s and 1v1, like the four pillars. But you've changed scope. You haven't talked about how you changed scope. You just are deciding that this is now the scope. And I understand what's happening here. Again, this is likely a financial decision that Frost Giant has to make. But this is a little bit of gaslighting here. For those keeping track, these have been our previous version names. Apocalypse, our alpha build, up through Necrolite, which is the upcoming Steam release. And coming up next fall, I assume this fall, Ornithopter will be our fall release when we introduce Team Mayhem to Sigma Labs. Peon would be next on deck, followed by Queen. This just may be editing, but saying would be instead of will be. What is the subjunctive? What is the imperfect future? Will is the definite future. I hope I'm just reading too much into that. We have a lot more planned after that as well. Players who want to know more about our development priorities and future plans can look forward to our next roadmap, which we aim to release ahead of our upcoming patch. So in the next 2 weeks, we will get a roadmap. I hope. They aim to release this, of course, not final, but I understand why they're like, yeah, deadline slip. What about smaller patches like 0.1? How will you handle these? We name these smaller patches as well. Hunter, followed up by Hunter 2, which is pretty funny. I referenced... Hello, fellow kids. A reference to the classic internet meme. Griffin was followed by a Griffinish line. I have no idea what this means. Griffin, I understand it's a unit, but a Griffinish line? What is... You don't need to explain Hunter 2. Not to the... I don't think you need to explain Hunter 2 to this community, but what in the world does Griffinish line mean? To reflect the hot fixes we needed to make for early access release. Spoiler alert, we are already working on updates that will land after Necrolite, and they're going to be Necrolit. That's bad. That's really bad. But, you know, I'm laughing, so it's fine, right? This is the type of joke I make, so it's fine. Why are you leaving early access with all the game modes you've been working on? After a year of progress, with the help of our community's feedback, we believe that our campaign and 1v1 are ready for a broader audience. We're going to get into 1v1. I'm very surprised they're including this. Campaign, sure, but 1v1, I'm a little surprised. But we feel that these modes are at a point where players at large can enjoy them. Other modes, like co-op missions and the editor, will be available in development state throughout our in-game test kitchen, which we're calling Sigma Labs, which, of course, is not a reference to Sigma Zoomerisms, but Sigma as in the Sigma project to go and try to save humanity in the Stormgate universe. These modes will continue to expand over time in the same way that past RTS games launched and grew from there. Even in a previous state, we believe the content in Sigma Labs is a lot of fun. Here are some screenshots from player-created maps that have been made using our editor. These are both RL maps, by the way. This top one is Scarlet Isle. I believe, yes, this top one is Scarlet Isle. It's a bit of a weird angle. It's like flipped. Used to seeing, because we're looking at the top side of the map here, top corner. And this is Malice Depths. Interestingly enough, we're not seeing Blackspire, which I think is the kind of the best map of those and probably looks the coolest too. We hope that our players will understand our choice to prioritize the fundamentals first and to release with our campaign 1v1 modes while we continue to fill out the rest of our long-term vision. Quality over quantity was our single biggest learning from early access. As an independent studio, we have limited resources and exiting early access is a critical step towards sustaining our ongoing development. They're right there saying we need to do this for the money. You know what? Respect. It's not as flat out as some people would like it to be, where it's like, we need you to pay us money so we don't go under. But this is saying, hey, straight up, we need to monetize. You know, much like the Carol LaForge interview a while ago. Like, we do need to start making some more money on this. We can't be running as dark as we have been. So we need to be able to sustain development. And it's a little frustrating to, you know, our biggest learning from early access was quality over quantity. Fair. If you've been following development, it was pretty clear that with the financial SEC reports that came out earlier in this year, that they had to go into early access July 31st of last year, because that was the last day they could do so, while still paying only interest on a $3 million loan from Silicon Valley Bank. If they had stayed in early access, or if they'd stayed not in early access, in alpha, beta, pre-early access longer than that, they would have had to start making payments on the principal, not just the interest, which are significantly higher monthly payments. So they were, as far as I can tell, this is not confirmed, but just reading the deadlines and things, it seems like that's what forced them into early access. And I had conversations with Frost Giant before then, where I was like, guys, Infernal Vanguard are fun. They need development, obviously, but like, get them done. Celestial's later date. You know, like, give me a vertical slice, get it really good. And they were of the opinion at the time that, I guess because of Blizzard credentials and everything else, they were going to go and give everything in like a work in progress state, and people would give them the grace. Obviously not true. I wish they had listened to myself and other people in the Discord and other people that were telling them, just give it a vertical slice, don't have everything in, but like, give them proof that show proof that it can be really good. Because RTS gamers and RTS fans in particular have been burned before, but they didn't. They're learning quality over quantity. And that's the decision I think they had to make. It's just frustrating that they're doing it only now after the damage has been done. We remain very committed to achieving our full vision, and we want to be forthright that our Steam launch is a debut rather than the end of a journey. Fair enough. Why not wait till everything is ready? We have a grand vision for Stormgate that we hope to continue to evolve for years to come. Many prior RTS game launches, including some recent releases, Tempest Rising, 2 factions at release, which is, again, I think that's what Frost Giant should have done. I'm not getting on Tempest Rising's scale too much here, but that's what they're referencing. Focused on traditional campaign and competitive modes for their launch. We feel like this is a good approach that honors our community's guidance for us to focus on quality instead of trying to do everything at once, which again was the big thing they learned from EA. We're a much smaller studio with more limited funding than the big publishers, and we must align our focus to match that reality, aka we don't have a lot of money. We've worked really hard to build, which we all knew. At least if you've been following, you knew this. They had $22,000 in the bank as of last year. They got some more investments, but we've worked really hard to build a strong foundation with Snowplay, and our current priority has been to prepare our campaign and 1v1 experiences for a broader audience. And realistically, like, Stormgate is fun. But the Stormgate mechanics, balance issues aside, because I think there are some significant ones, and I really hope they're more active on balance patching after release. I was fine the entirety of early access. If things are broken, whatever, who cares? It's early access. Every patch is changing things so dramatically that it's not worth the effort. But if you're going to leave early access, even if balance on launch in the first week of launch is all over the place, which is fair, you have to balance the game. You have to make sure that Infernals don't have a 60% win rate across the board. You got to make sure that Celestials have more options than just Infernal or than just Argent Kree. Like, especially with the limited unit roster that Stormgate has, you got to make them viable. It's going to take a while. Obviously, first year of Wings of Liberty, Zerg was dead at high level. But you have to make it playable. Like, you have to dedicate the time to this, even if you would rather be finishing the Celestial rework or whatever it is. You no longer have the EA excuse. How many campaign missions are included at launch? Stormgate's first campaign, Ashes of Earth, will launch with 12 missions. It's a complete story, but we have plans to expand upon it in the future with some additional free missions. My guess here, especially because the guy that voiced Julian Nassar was tweeting about, Julian Amara's dad, was tweeting about stuff, is that these are prequel missions, free prequel missions before the main story, which I I really like. Again, I've been pushing. I'd love a mission where you're escaping Sigma Polar and you just have all this really cool stuff as these intro missions, and then you're slowly losing it until eventually everything gets broken down and you get forced off planet. But kind of this fighting retreat, I think is kind of a cool idea. It gives you that like big RTS spectacle before you kind of start to build up your tech again. I don't know though. Again, this is just me reading tea leaves. From there, our plan is to release more campaigns for as long as players are enjoying them. Are all the units in the game finished? And I'm gonna preface these two paragraphs by saying I think these are the two most challenging paragraphs in this entire FAQ. I really wish they'd rewritten these, but when it leaked. But obviously, the time between leak and release is what it is. Yes, for now. We believe our core factions have reached a fun and competitive state, but Stormgate is a living game. RTS balance is never perfect. It's safe to expect that when we have launch day, we'll continue to evolve over time. Balance adjustments, unit ideas, and faction updates will continue based on player feedback and internal goals, including our planned future introduction of new Tier 3 units. We're also actively working on our Celestial revamp, which will be rolled out in stages, as well as introduction of more units and other changes that we feel will improve the game. So they're not done. Like, Frost Giant, this is everything people have been complaining to you about your communication for the last year. Yes, for now, means no. I understand that you have to do some level of PR on this. But yes, for Celestial rework, we're going to get our first look at it in Necrolite in 0.6. Tier 3 units are missing. Yeah, Infernals have 1, Vanguard have 2, Celestials have 1. We know they're missing. They're missing Tier 2 units. As will the introduction of more units and other changes. It's not done. You can call it done all you want. Like, the way you say this is, are all the units in the game finished? No. We are still, this is a live service game. We're still revamping things, but saying yes and then spending 2 paragraphs telling me about how everything you said is not correct is exactly what everyone has been yelling at you about for the last year. You can't, you're giving so much, there's a fire that's going to happen. Because earlier, this is not the launch that you wanted. I know this, Frost Giant. We know this is true. And there's going to be a fire for that. People can say, why are they leaving early access without 4 modes? We've been talking about this earlier. But this is like squirting accelerant all over it. This is going to go into the list of what, again, I think was a fairly clear copy edit. People internally were talking about early access as release. So you say, we're going to fully fund it to release in the Kickstarter. That was a copy edit thing. And you should have gone at the time and said, hey, we misspoke. I'm sorry. You know, like, but this is going to go, if someone does not like this or someone feels jilted by this, by the process, it's going to go in their folder. You're not helping yourself here. I hope it works. I really do, because I get to talk with the devs on a regular basis. I really like the people that work on this game. I like the game. The Stormgate update that we got in 0.5, removing creep camps and adding Stormgates, was really good. We've seen some really cool stuff. It's not done. It's obviously not done. Things are imbalanced. And who knows, maybe 0.6 proves me wrong. And maybe they are done. Maybe all the unit revamps of Celestials, but they already say they're not there. So you can't frustrate. You can't talk out 2 sides of your mouth like this. Like, this is giving people these 2 paragraphs are the exact wrong thing to say. Does this mean the game is no longer in early access? Correct. Stormgate Campaign 1, Ashes of Earth, codenamed Necrolite, marks the end of early access. But we're a live game, and there's much more to come, including co-op missions, our 3v3 Team Mayhem mode, and the editor. And we consider ourselves to be still at an earlier stage of development. We'll be sharing a roadmap to give you a vision of what's to come closer to our launch. And again, I empathize with Frost Giant here, right? They are in a position they don't want to be in. They got their initial rounds of funding when the interest rate was like near zero. And then COVID, like in COVID, money was VC gaming stuff was out the wazoo. And then when they started looking for their second round of funding, we're suddenly 5% interest rate, and year over year, gaming companies, in particular tech companies, were getting like 40% less companies were funded in. It was like 40% less companies were funded or received a funding round in 2021 or like 2022 compared to 2020. The numbers aren't quite right. I did a whole article on this for Stormgate Nexus, but the fund their expectations on funding rounds just disappeared, and they've been reeling ever since, trying to recover. Their roadmap was, I assume, different, and it's not an easy position to be in to say we have to release this right now, but it's not where we'd like it to be. That's marketing death. To say, hey guys, go buy our game because we need you to buy our game so we can keep doing this. But yeah, it's not done yet. It's a release though. Go play it. That's a rock and a hard place. I do not envy Gerald. I do not envy Jex. I do not envy the rest of the marketing team at Frost Giant for having to go thread this path. And honestly, I wouldn't have too many issues outside of these two paragraphs. Like that and not explaining what you mean by foundational, because that's going to be confusing to people. But this is fuel to the flames. Everything else, I understand they're not. It's a challenging communication environment, and unfortunately on this one, I think they are shooting themselves in the foot again. We'll see. What's the status of co-op and the editor? Co-op missions, the Train Editor Alpha will both be available in Sigma Labs for players who want to explore what we're working on next. Again, has this been updated from 0.4? I don't know, but that's the big question. Everything in Sigma Labs is clearly marked as a work in progress, and these modes will continue to grow and evolve in future updates. When can we play Team Mayhem? The upcoming update, the 0.7 or Ornithopter, I think they're calling it. When will all game modes be finished? It's impossible to say. Both modes we've previewed, we're aiming for 2026. A lot can happen between now and then, and the commercial success of our upcoming Steam release will be a major factor. Again, this is the most... It's frustrating, because those two paragraphs higher are like everything Fresh Shine has been accused of not being forthright, of speaking at both sides of their mouth. And and then we have two paragraphs later, like this is the most forthright they've been. So close. But our goal is to have Team Mayhem co-op missions and the editor in a ready state by the first half of next year. As a live game, we hope to continue adding more modes in the future. Cool. 2v2 ladder. If they can figure out how Stormgates are supposed to work in multiplayer or in more than one player in team game modes. Will my campaign process carry over into Necrolite? Yes. Any progress you made during early access will carry forward into Necrolite. The players will need to reallocate the reward points they earned in previous versions of the campaign. And from what I've heard, it's better just to kind of redo it. It's just better to restart the campaign because enough stuff has changed that it's just like, it's better just to start from scratch. Again, this is what people are saying about in 0.5. So I don't know. I played it through in 0.4 and haven't touched it since. But I'm going to play through it again when we get the full campaign. Can I pause or save? Yes, you can pause, save only at checkpoints, but full save will be there in the future. Did you ever add customizable hotkeys? Yes, those are introduced back in 0.3 or Krogoth, and we continue iterating based on player feedback. Also added fully custom automatic control groups, which I think are really cool. The interview I did with the developer, Eleazar behind that, is on the YouTube channel. I think it was a great conversation. He goes into what it took to get those working, inspirations, future progress, all those different things that he wants to do. What else is changing for the upcoming launch? We made a wide range of improvements since our last update, including visual upgrades. Maybe this is where we get the Celestial Visual Pass. Is that done? I don't know. I don't know that I doubt they've been able to move fast enough because Alan was only showing me Infernal Vanguard stuff last time. I don't know. New gameplay features, balance changes, and more bug fixes than we can count, many of which is based on community feedback, which is good. Putting a big focus on making sure the game's not too buggy for a release matters a lot, even if it does hinder some level of content. If you're like us and you love the style of real-time strategy game, we hope that you'll join us for our biggest milestone yet when Stormgate Campaign 1 Ashes of Earth launches on Steam. We're tremendously excited about this major milestone and about continuing our development journey with RTS players around the world. Ashes of Earth is a solid name, by the way. especially when you get that cinematic of the Earth burning. I think it's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, what this means, early access ends August 5th. There will be a campaign, 12 missions. They're calling 1v1 done. Clearly, it's not done. Or, sorry, they're not calling 1v1 done. That is unfair to them. They're saying the units as they are, the units in the game are complete. Pending a Celestial rework and tier 3 units and changes. And maybe I'm splitting hairs here, right? Because in a live service game, live service multiplayer game, there will be balance patch. Like, look at what Dota does. Heroes get changed up all the time. Things get reworked. Items get added, removed, and no one's accusing the game of being released or not released. But I just look at kind of what has been promised, and if you're calling, like, if you're doing a full faction rework, and you're in the process of doing so when you release, that's something that's in process. That's not a, oh, in our next update, we want to give the XYZ. It's... anyways, campaign's going to be out August 5th. We're going to get a new look at Stormgates, hopefully with some balance changes. Hopefully they're active on fixing balance that changes for the first, until it gets roughly 50-50 in matchups. Like, I think that is a really big thing. Sounds like we might get some co-op updates in Sigma Labs. I don't know. There will be a update to the editor as well, although it sounds like it's going to be fairly small and just more like bug fixes than adding new functionality. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, as is kind of where I've been for the last year. I like all the changes they made in every update. I hope I'm going to like this one as well, but we're just going to have to see. In the meantime, I'm going to be hopefully talking with Tim Campbell in the next 2 weeks prior to launch, I hope, or shortly thereafter. If you got questions for him, please drop them in the comments down below. If you like this, you want to stay up to date with Stormgate's continued development, casted games, all those fun things, make sure to go sub to the channel, follow me on Twitch so you can catch everything live, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.